Welcome to Voices of the Community. I'm your host, George Koster. This is our final episode of Season 2 of our special series, Where Art Meets Impact, and our co-production with California for the Arts, featuring interviews with attendees and presenters from their second annual Arts and Culture Summit. Join our summit roaming reporter, Eduardo Robles, and myself as we feature the voices of artists, educators, and activists discussing the power of the arts to inspire, heal, and transform. Watch and listen to their insights and join the movement to support the arts in California and in your community. Hi, this is George Koster with the Voices of the Community and Californians for the Arts at the second annual California for the Arts and Culture Summit. I'm here with Kristin Sakoda from LA County Department of Arts and Culture, who was a speaker last year. And so, Kristin, from this year's summit, what would you say are one of the main themes that you really resonate with and your department's work resonates with?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's exciting to be back again and be here in person. And of course, we know that arts and culture is so important. It can apply to pretty much every facet of our civic lives. But it was really important that today we uplifted the notion of cultural equity, as well as economic empowerment for our artists and our communities, and the notion of arts and health. And I'll say at the LA County Department of Arts and Culture, we work in a wide range of ways, from grant making to arts education to civic art, but we are also focusing on the intersection of arts and health in our work. And so it's really been exciting to see this as a field begin to grow even more, including at this year's summit.
So just a follow-up to that, do you feel like there's an opportunity for you to work with the county to actually, and this is always a hard one in today's environment, economically, secure funds to help execute perhaps everyone's favorite word, a pilot program on arts, as health, arts as prescription?
Yes. Well, I'm happy to say that we actually have already been doing work at the intersection of arts and health. And for everybody out there, I wanted to say one other thing, which is expanding access to the arts importantly helps our well-being and our vital and healthy communities. So any kind of access to the arts really supports arts and health. But we at LA County have already been spearheading some partnerships and collaborations around arts as a mental health support for young people, as well as through our grant making to arts organizations throughout LA County, and also having artists in residence and civic art in our hospitals. So we're excited about this work, but I am looking forward to growing and building on it from here with, yes, hopefully unlocking more funding, more resources, and more opportunity.
So just to wrap up, for all the folks listening and watching this, what can they do in their communities and within LA County, for example, to actually engage with nonprofits, your organization, to bring more of this to our community? Yeah,
well, everybody can engage in the arts themselves, but also we can all be a voice for the arts, because while broadly we know it's popular, it still sometimes can be a narrative that we have to change, that arts is just a nice to have, right? Or that we don't really need to pay for it somehow. So I think if everyone all across California, all across the country really, can continue to be a voice for the arts, but also to engage in it to make ourselves whole and happy and support organizations any way they can. And if they are a nonprofit or an artist operating in LA, in the county, of course, you can apply to our programs at lacountyarts.org. But there's always great information all around California, Californians for the Arts, California Arts Council, and so on.
Thank you so much, Kristin, for all these really wonderful words of wisdom and taking time away from the summit to share your insights today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hear from Michael Alexander as he reflects on the power of arts advocacy, how it grew from grassroots efforts to a movement shaping policies that support artists and communities statewide.
Eduardo Robles with Californians for the Arts here at the California Arts and Culture Summit, and I'm here with
Michael Alexander.
Michael, so great to see you.
Well, it's good to see you too, and I think we've only interacted maybe through emails and maybe a Zoom meeting or two, but this is the first time I can recall getting together face to face with you.
Well, I'm so happy to see you. Can you tell us how you were inspired by the summit? Where do you see advocacy moving towards the future?
Well, let me just say, when there was nothing serving arts advocacy in the state, I was on the board of the California Presenters, and I asked the board if they would pop for $1,000 if we could get another statewide service organization to pop for a similar amount and start an arts advocacy organization. And so, along with Chris Sinclair, who was then the head of the California Symphony Orchestra Service Organization, the two of us became the first co-chairs of this organization. And for a long time, we could not afford to have even one staff person, let alone, we were barely paying our lobbyist a $1,000 a month retainer or whatever it was in those days. And so what I saw today in terms of the number of people and realizing that there's this size staff is a real point of pride for me, because I'm proud that our state and our colleagues in the arts advocacy field, and that's all artists ought to be in the arts advocacy field, because there's so much need for our involvement in setting public policy and setting it on the right path. So I was just thrilled with the numbers that were here. I was thrilled with the enthusiasm and the diversity of fields that people are coming from, the diversity on the stage of representatives from all kinds of organizations and from parts of the state where we hadn't heard voices in the past. And so I think it's a real testament to the leadership, to the staff of where CAA and CFTA have gone, to the boards, and it's a couple of generations now of boards in their commitment to making this organization thrive. And it has now grown, I think, into a model of how a statewide arts service organization has to serve not just the arts professionals, but the people of the state that those arts professionals want to serve, because the state's citizenry is better off because of the successes of California arts advocates and Californians for the Arts.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. I really wanted, to hear, what you thought about, the summit, how advocacy evolved. Thank you for walking us through, the beginning and where we're at now. And now we're really at a moment where, the value of the utility of art, it's more legitimized. It's more, but we still need to do more work, right? As we can hear from the conversations today, but we are, moving the dial in shifting the narrative.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think that it's important for us to remember too, I'm staying in this business now in the second half of my 70s, but we're standing on the shoulders of people who came before me, people who were involved in arts advocacy as members of the presenting world or the dance world or the orchestra and the visual arts world. And we have a lot of work to do to organize the disenfranchised artists, or the artists who feel that they have no service organization to advocate for their needs, because I know so many who feel they're terribly isolated and out of a network, that they do not have a vehicle to help them get their issues brought up in front of the CAC and in front of the public at large about what it is for us to have storytellers, to have creatives making our lives better and whole because of their work. So we need to, one, acknowledge the past, and two, keep dreaming for where we can take an organization like this down the road.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Can artwork heal and build community? Meghna Bhat and Ruben Reveles discuss their experiences and the importance of valuing artists' work.
Hey, we're coming at you live at the California Arts and Culture Summit. I'm here with
Meghna Bhat
and
Ruben Reveles.
Yeah. So how has been today?
It's been great. A lot of interesting things to learn about, and learned a lot of stuff about sound and healing, and yeah, it's great. And art.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Artwork is real work.
Yeah.
How is artwork real work for you?
Oh, I think just the community building and the transformative conversations we have about the power of stories, the power of art and culture, to create a sustainable environment and a future. I love those elements of the conversation.
Yeah. What were you most inspired by today?
I think the whole, I think the deeper conversations about artwork is real work, and as an artist, how do you align your values, to the yes values, right? What do you say yes to, and you say no to like unpaid work, because I think you're setting it up for other future artists. So how do you step up and you assert yourself and, recognize your own value? I love that part.
So did it inspire like more advocacy work?
Yes, it really did. And also to learn what you're not that good at doing, and learn to reach out and ask for help for people, and and communicating and meeting all these new people, which is a good extension of community work. Yeah.
Yeah, our statewide peers, right? Like our folks all over the city. What was your favorite panel?
Oh, I feel I love the keynote. The first two panels were really powerful. Again, they address so many aspects of conversations and struggles that each of us are going through in our own artistic discipline. And just to know that you're not alone and we're trying to problem solve and again create visibility and legitimacy of the work that we're doing in our different disciplines.
Did you do a workshop?
Yes, it was great. Yeah, it was more of the art and healing and music and sound. Whoa. So it was really good. Yeah, because being a former musician, I can relate to what they were talking about. So in art and healing through music, and that was great.
Wonderful. So, can you tell us a little bit about the organization or the artist?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Chicanx features artist. I do a lot of work in movement, vibration, sounds, colors, and through healing, right, too. And also a story culture teller and going through Mexico and coming back and displaying the great parts of Mexico, Yeah.
The practitioners here.
I am Meghna. I'm a first-generation South Asian immigrant, and I created Gulabi Stories, a South Asian storytelling initiative about healing. And I am a storyteller by artist, so I share stories on stage. I facilitate storytelling workshops for immigrant and refugee communities, and I love what I do.
Great. There it is. Artwork is cultural work. Artwork is here at the California Arts and Culture Summit. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Muriera joins us to discuss how artists are key economic drivers, the importance of advocacy, and the ongoing fight for funding that sustains creative communities and cultural institutions across California.
Reporting live from the California Arts and Culture Summit, I'm here with
Ron Muriera of the City of San Jose, Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs.
As you can see today, that artwork is real work. But that is interesting that you mentioned, your role in economic development. How is artwork economic work? Or
I think one of the things that we are imparting within the decision makers is the fact that artists, cultural bearers, creatives are essential contributors to the economy, so that arts are not a luxury, arts are not a hobby. They are a valuable and significant contributor to an economy, whether it's the city economy, the county's economy. So, in fact, artwork is real work, and the fact that we can demonstrate that to our decision makers, I think, plays a pivotal moment for them to reconsider how they look at us in terms of contributors to the economic engine.
What was like a key theme today, like a through line in terms of supporting art workers, utilizing art to provide solutions? What has been for you like a through line throughout the summit?
I saw probably a couple of through lines, but most importantly, what I saw is making sure that your voices are lifted and at the table, and with that goes advocacy. So I think, which is great about the summit. California for the Arts does a great job of making resources available, because I met some folks who this is their first summit. And I think one of the things that they shared with me is that we didn't know about any of these resources. And now we can go back and increase our advocacy efforts at our local level, at our county level. The other, takeaway I noticed is about funding. And that's always key. A lot of times, there are artists, our cultural bearers, and our creatives who don't know about the resources available to them. So I think that was very important among some of the discussions happening in the panel, as well as outside. Now, I used to share with folks that sometimes a lot of the work happens outside in conversations of the panels and workshops, because that's where you can really get to network and meet some key people. And I've been blessed to be mentored by many people, so I pass that on, and a couple of people have asked me to pick my brain, so that's what I'm going to do, is continue to provide knowledge and experience with some of the folks who are now just becoming aware of the fact that artwork is real work, and that advocacy and funding is going to be important to continue to sustain their artistic practice in California.
Thank you so much, Ron, for giving us a little insight into some key takeaways and, showing us how, artwork is, doing some real work in California.
You got it. Anytime. I love what California for the Arts and California Arts Advocates continues to do. So I just want to give a big shout out to all the work that the team is doing. So thank you so much. Big shout out. Keep it going, CFTA and CAA.
We're halfway through our powerful conversation at the California Arts and Culture Summit. Kristin Sakoda discussed cultural equity, Michael Alexander highlighted arts advocacy, Meghna Bhat and Ruben Reveles emphasized storytelling and healing, and Muriera connects arts to economic growth. Thank you to our incredible sponsors and to listeners like you for supporting Voices of the Community. Stay with us, more insights to come. Voices of the Community is made possible by generous support from the Zellerbach Family Foundation, dedicated to ensuring vibrant work is created, new voices celebrated, and diverse communities have opportunities to thrive. Learn more at zff.org. Voices of the Community is also supported by the Peaceful World Foundation, fostering a culture of global peace through hosted conversations and education. Discover more at peacefulworldfoundation.org. The arts may be a key solution to the growing epidemic of social isolation. Researcher and artist Indre Viskontas joins us to discuss the science behind art's impact on health and well-being, and how artists can collaborate with researchers to create an even bigger impact.
Hi, my name is Eduardo Robles with Californians for the Arts and Voices of the Community here at the second annual California Arts and Culture Summit in Sacramento. I just got out of the Arts and Health panel, and I have Indre Viskontas, guest panelist. Hi.
Hi, Eddie. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So one thing we just wanted to talk about was how you're using kind of research and storytelling to really get at kind of systems changes. You mentioned a project you did with college essays. How are you thinking in terms of like intervention strategies for getting, creativity, funding, art and, art and health?
Yeah. So, I think we all have this intuition that stories are really compelling and convincing, and people are often, more likely to change their behavior on the basis of a story than on statistics. But the truth is that those statistics also have a place when it comes to large structural change, funding decisions, government decisions, impacting policymakers and so on. The research, the statistics is actually really important. And it's a challenge to measure something like creativity or the arts and its impact on health and well-being just using numbers. But that's one of the things that we've tried to do over the last couple of decades. We've gotten much better at it. And we also, the reason that we need to do this is because I'm often in a room full of policymakers. And while we can all agree around the table that arts have an impact, ultimately they may need to make that case to people who are going to choose between two potential initiatives and have a bottom line. And when they can cite numbers, I find they are much more convincing to those other players. The other side of it, of course, is that the arts are very subjective. We have our own individual reaction to it. In fact, one of the things that I often say is that the difference between art and science is not in terms of the goal. The goal is the same. We want to know what it means to be human. The difference is in whether you're objective and subjective and how you value that. So in science, we're looking for general principles that apply to everyone. We're trying to be objective. But in art, you're using your individual experience, your own personal story, to illuminate what is universal and to connect in that way. And so that's why I think that both have a place, there's a need for it. And the research that we're doing now on arts and health is only going to be enhanced by the participation of the artists who can inform what outcomes and things that we measure.
Thank you. So in your point of view, which is, as we're in social isolation, a pandemic of social isolation, what is like the key coordinate, the key data point that, now that that's here, it's like, there's, the Department of Defense or, there's actual like huge departments that are, looking for strategies to address. So on the cultural sector or arts and culture, what is the key data point that we should be kind of like pounding at the door with?
Yeah, I mean, so as you mentioned, the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy put out this whole white paper about how we are in this epidemic of social isolation, that it has a, impact on our health, 15 times more dangerous than smoking, or I don't know, I'm making that up, but it's something like that. It's some shockingly high impact on our health compared to things that we know are bad for our health, like smoking. And so this is why I think we start to see, we need to address this issue. And traditionally, arts and culture, in my opinion, the whole point is to connect us. The whole point is for us to express ourselves and to communicate with one another. When I think about the evolution of music, for example, I think it predates language, because 1 million years before language evolved, we were already sitting around the fire, which had been discovered by our ancestors, and living in larger social groups, like 100 to 150 individuals. So if that's the case, what were we doing when we were cooking around the fire? We were probably exchanging art and culture, right? We were exchanging calls. We were maybe moving our bodies to a beat, etc. So to me, that's like the fundamental role of the arts, is to bring us out of our isolation, to help us understand one another, and to make us feel more connected. And that's, in fact, what we see when people are experiencing music that moves them. We see increases in the hormone oxytocin, which is involved in attachment, involved in bringing us together. We see increases in the synchronization between their brains and body rhythms, the way their hearts beat, the way they breathe, even the way their brain waves are syncing up. So to me, arts and culture is a huge part of the solution to the isolation problem.
Is there anything from the panel today that you would like to elaborate on? Any impressions that you're taking away?
Yeah, so I was really moved by the keynote by Nataki Garrett, where she mentioned that the artists should be at the center of, decision making, of, how they're being paid, et cetera, and centering the artist. And that really resonates with me, because as a researcher, I think one of our biggest holes has been that we haven't had enough artists be involved in the actual research, so that we can get a sense of, what it is that they think is important. One of the things I think is really important when we study, creativity or the arts, is not just to look at how it might impact the way it is, but rather how can we make it better to have an even bigger impact, on the audience. As an artist myself, that's something that I look forward to. Like, what research can I do that will make me a better singer, a better performer? And so I think that I would really want to encourage artists to reach out to scientists who are interested in creativity. So I'm the president of the Society for the Neuroscience of Creativity. We have a whole slew of people who are interested in this problem, but there's also the NeuroArts Blueprint and a whole bunch of other organizations that are pulling together researchers in this space. And I encourage artists to reach out to them and say, how can I participate? How can I help? Whether it's as a participant in a study, or even help craft a study, or interpret the data, or get the study out into the world. I think there's a real role for artists, and I just don't want them to be shy and to feel like, even though they might not know all the jargon, all the vocabulary that the scientists use, or all the statistical tools, that doesn't mean they can't make a really meaningful impact on the research. And I encourage them to do that.
Wow. So there's like a storytelling need, right? Like getting the artist and telling that story. So we can play a role in that, right? Like as an arts advocacy organization we invite artists, culture bearers to reach out to, the organizations that you're a part of, so we can start, really articulating that story.
I mean, exactly right. And I think not just telling the story after the research has been done, but helping us design the research so that the story that you tell afterwards is as good as it possibly can be.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Welcome back to Voices of the Community, where today's conversation at the California Arts and Culture Summit focuses on advocacy, economic empowerment, and the role of arts in health. Join us as we explore the impact of arts and community leadership with Josiah Bruny, a visionary empowering youth through creativity, mentorship, and transformative programs that redefine engagement and civic participation.
All right. Hi, my name is Eduardo Robles with Californians for the Arts and Voices of the Community here at the second annual California Arts and Culture Summit in Sacramento, California. I'm here with Josiah Bruny, our facilitator or our panelist for the Arts and Youth panel, and excited to hear, a little bit about, that conversation you were having with the panelists and just some key ideas or some inspiration from that dialogue.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Eduardo, for the opportunity. So the key information that I'd like to talk about is just listening and leading with community first. I think that was the most prevalent message in that session. Everyone that was engaged in there, they really honed in on how we're not just actively working with these kids and giving them cookie cutter programs. We're actually listening to them and helping them to develop the programs in our communities. So that was really a great takeaway. And then most importantly, I'm just glad to be here in Sacramento with so many leaders that are from different sectors. It's not just artists here. We had school teachers, we had city officials, and that is what needs to happen more here in Southern and Northern California. Bringing the artist into a space where we could talk about what's going on, but then bringing those leaders that can change the policy back home.
Today we had, great panels, all talking about, intergenerational leadership. What is the urgency for leading for arts leadership with youth? What is like the bottom line that we need in terms of supporting, our youth?
Awesome. So I think the urgency for supporting our youth and youth organizations is not just the funding aspect, but more so the mentorship, right? We all need to learn to each one teach one and bring our differences to the table. We can always learn from one another. We were talking about what is the definition for a youth, right? And one of the ladies said in the group, she said, anybody that's 75 and under, right? And we all start laughing. But if you listen to the Old Testament, they say youth is within you. You're as old as you feel, right? And youthfulness is within us. So I think that's what the urgency is for us to stop looking at how old we are or how tired we are, but more so how creative we can be, how smart we can be together. Let's start sharing different ideals, different ideologies, and really, like I said in the beginning, start listening to one another and leading with community first, right? If we bring the community to the table, ask them what they want, and then we go back and say, how can we make that happen for you? I think we'll have a lot better results in the communities that we serve.
Is there anything in the panel that you really were inspired by?
So what I was really inspired by is the artist. I forget her name that was in there. She's a muralist, and she brought out another muralist that was in the crowd that's doing similar work to us, right? And so this really brought about the point of how we need to start sharing our ideas. So this young lady in the crowd, she creates murals, but then she gives the schools and other businesses a template of this is how you do community murals. Now we're doing the same thing with our No Justice, No Peace mural tour. Now, if I wasn't here, I would have never met this young lady, thousands of miles away from each other, but we're doing the same thing. Never met one another, same ideals. And that's where they say not one idea hasn't already been unturned. You just have to meet your people. And so that's what I really would love people to understand is that you just got to keep in search, be optimistic, look for your people that believe in what you're doing, and then you can grow your vision to become whatever it needs to be.
Are there any like art programs, community art programs you're very jazzed about in terms of like youth empowerment, these blueprints that you're saying across California or Southern California? What are your favorite, community art programs that are youth focused in school, after school? What are we doing in terms of, helping transform students?
Awesome. Music changing lives, y'all. That's my favorite. No, but honestly, I think my favorite campaign that I'm working on right now is our State of the Youth campaign. It was brought up earlier that through this campaign, we learned through so during the pandemic, we did a survey and we asked the kids, what is the main thing that they want in their community? And it was a food. and it was the lack of food and healthy food. And so now through that process of surveying our students and learning what they want, we've now developed a 1.5 acre property that was the largest publicly owned dump site in our city, San Bernardino, and transform it to be the first open urban garden where you can go 24 hours a day, pick some vegetables. We have over 50 different species of vegetables and fruit, and we're literally creating food forests in our community. Now, this was an issue that at first the city wanted to arrest me for taking water, right, and using water and not asking permission. But then I had to show them I raised our property values, we've raised our morale in our community, and not only that, we rebranded the city name up there. It's now known as the Uptown San Bernardino area. And so that movement literally turned into us doing this statewide tour now where we're going around hosting these things called State of the Youth, and we're doing listening sessions, and we're just finding out what the kids want. And they have the option to either create a community mural, community garden, or a community cleanup. And this to me is the most dynamic program that I've worked on thus far, because you're actually seeing it transform instantly. This isn't something that's taken 3 years, 4 years. I literally work with these kids for 5 hours, and within those 5 hours, we transform the narrative in their community and put the power back in their hands.
So, there's been a lot of harm to communities. And coming out of this pandemic of isolation, and we heard some talk on arts and health, and the damage is done to kids, in their academic performance, and literacy. And so there is probably, some data there, for some, intervention, support, policies, etc. How are we addressing that urgency? Is it being addressed for youth? Like we mentioned a little bit on the intergenerational leadership. Are leaders stepping up to, support youth in that way?
Sadly, I haven't seen too many examples that we can follow for that youth development. I mean, you have youth programming again, but mainly it's cookie cutter. It's not giving the students the power to be decision makers at the table and also to be inclusive in this economic development that we're talking about. And so that's where we're changing that narrative, right? We know our data, we know our narrative, and now we know the action. And our action is to get more youth engaged in those talking tables. And so we need to start and just meet them where they are, get them civically engaged, get them prepared, teach them advocacy, teach them how to go out and speak for themselves. But most importantly, we got to stop acting like it's just cute what they're talking about and truly listen to the youth. There's some dynamic children out here and young adults that are making some powerful movements, but they just need leaders like ourselves to come and listen to them and then give them the tools to make that change happen within their community. And that's, again, what we're doing through our State of the Youth program. And we're hoping that this will become a policy. So just like how every city gives a State of the Youth or State of the City address or the State of the County, we want their youth in those cities and their youth in those counties to have now a youth council that will speak for their region statewide that says, here's what youth adults are facing. Because what I've seen is for politicians, I get it, right? Who's voting for me? That's all they're thinking about. I need a vote. And these young kids, they don't really count as a vote for them. And so we need to change that and let them know that these are the future voters for you. And these are the ones that are going to set the tempo in the future for all of us. Hopefully they'll keep Social Security, healthcare, things like that rolling, and we don't drop the ball.
Yeah. So the artworks to empower youth, the artworks. Thank you so much for offering us, some of your insight into the panel and some of your programs and, all of the good work that you're doing. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
All right.
From cultural equity and economic empowerment to arts education and health, we've explored the transformative power of the arts in California. A special thanks to our guest, Kristin Sakoda, Michael Alexander, Meghna Bhat, Ruben Reveles, Muriera, and Indre Viskontas, along with Josiah Bruny, for sharing their insights and passion for the arts. Thank you for watching, listening, and supporting seasons 1 and 2 of Where Art Meets Impact. As we wrap up Where Art Meets Impact, we celebrate the powerful voices that have shaped this season, from the intersection of arts and health to advocacy and economic empowerment. Our guests from each of the 8 episodes have demonstrated the transformative role of the arts. This episode concludes Season 2 in partnership with California for the Arts, but the conversation continues. Visit voicesofthecommunity.com, go to Season 2 of Where Art Meets Impact, and dive into Episode 8 to explore more about our guest. While you're on our website, we invite you to revisit Season 1 with Arts for a Better Bay Area, support the arts in your community, engage, advocate, and amplify. Thank you for joining us for this special 2 seasons shining a spotlight on how the arts and culture sectors are coming back from the pandemic. We hope you'll join us for the return of our new series, Making the Invisible Visible. Discover real stories of resilience and hope of our unhoused neighbors and the people and organizations supporting them. Tune in, engage, and help shape a future where no one is invisible. Today's episode was made possible through our co-production partnership with California for the Arts at their annual California Arts and Culture Summit. Special thanks to our technical crew, audio and video wizard Eric Estrada, and our co-production partner, Bayvac Media, and their wonderful team, Paula Argoni, Andy Konami, Siobhan Giles, and Clay Go. Thanks to Casey Nance from Citron Studios for the graphics magic. A special thanks to our broadcast partners who help share these important conversations: KSFP, LPFM in San Francisco, KPCA, LPFM in Petaluma, Petaluma Community Public Access TV, Bayvac Media's SF Commons, and PEG Media's Public Access TV Exchange. Thank you for your commitment to amplifying diverse voices and perspectives. Please support these partners and our mission by tuning in and spreading the word. Voices of the Community is made possible by generous support from the Zellerbach Family Foundation, dedicated to ensuring vibrant work is created, new voices celebrated, and diverse communities have opportunities to thrive. Learn more at zff.org. Voices of the Community is also supported by the Peaceful World Foundation, fostering a culture of global peace through hosted conversations and education. Discover more at peacefulworldfoundation.org. And we'd love your support to continue to make shows just like this one. Go to voicesofthecommunity.com and click on the donate button to help us continue to bring you unique voices from our community. Take Voices of the Community with you on the go. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Enjoying the show? Please rate and review us on your favorite app. It helps more people discover these important stories. Go to youtube.com/@GeoCoster to watch or listen to all of our past and future episodes. And you can always go to voicesofthecommunity.com and listen and watch our 5 series and from our archives. Have feedback or ideas for shows? We'd love to hear from you. Email george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster from San Francisco. On behalf of our team, thank you for joining us. Until next time, remember, your voice matters.